and welcome to episode 9 of It's Cool with Jasmine Cool. Um, today's vibe should be a little better than last week because I have a plan, a vague plan. Um, it may still be kind of short, but who knows? Um, Maybe I will actually talk about the gender stuff that I promised last week. Maybe I can start with that. That's not in my plan. But um so I have kind of talked before. I'm pretty solid in my gender identity as I am right now, as a woman. But every once in a while you have those thoughts that are not they don't align with that. Um I had talked a little bit before about imagining myself in a sweater without boobs. Um and not minding that image. But another thought similar to that was when I was playing softball and I was wearing these like Nike basketball socks that I had stolen from my older brother with my softball cleats, and then I was wearing just like shorts, and I was like, I feel very masculine right now, like a boy. I feel almost like a boy right now, and I dig it. Like I'm digging that feeling. So, um, that's another one where just like every once in a while, it's like, huh, what I, but then I'm like, no, no, um, yeah. Part of it, because a lot of it involves like my boobs, which I think has a lot to do with like the over sexualization of young women and just women in general, and the culture I grew up in that was very Catholic and like lots of shame around anything even remotely sexual at all. So for me, it's almost a combination of that. My religious trauma goes very deep, very deep. Um, like to the point where I've questioned asexuality multiple times. Like I can't tell if I'm asexual or if it's just religious trauma, because like I can't tell if because I've never been in a situation where I've even had to like think about it, which is sad. But like um I can't tell if like any of my feelings of hesitancy or anxiety around it are just because of Catholicism, because Catholicism is terrible that way in regards to like sex and stuff like that. Um, but like Catholicism is so bad. My dermatologist wanted to, or was like gonna look at putting me on birth control for my acne, and my mom said no. Yeah, that might get cut. But like, it's not a great environment to grow up in. Like, there's parts of it that are okay, and parts of it that are not. Most of it is not. The parts of it that are okay are very specific to each church. Like, there's the aspect of having a community, and there's that, like, but then a lot of the stuff that the church supports or believes in, or like at least now, is like harmful or just incorrect or just not fun. Anyways, back to my plan. I discovered this week that no, going to college does not make your mental illness go away. Yeah, because I had been doing so good. I like hadn't, like, even with the big changes and stuff, I hadn't been like super anxious or like dissociating or just like, sad. um, I had been doing good. It was kind of surprising because it's like all these new things and new people and whatever, and I was doing good. And then sometime last week, I just got like, I don't know, anxious again. Um, but kind of sad, you know? Just kind of my my anxiety manifests in me getting extremely quiet and still. I disassociate a lot. Um, Sometimes it's fun when you can control it and it's like, it's basically just daydreaming, and other times it's not fun. It's just kind of, it just kind of sucks. Um, but so yeah, I had like an anxiety episode. Um, I'm not sure if I have anxiety and depression or just anxiety, because a lot of the things that could also be other things I think are just my anxiety, because when I get super anxious, I kind of just lay in bed and I am sad, but I can't really tell if it's like depressed or just anxiety. That like the anxiety is like the anxious thoughts are the sad thoughts, or like um you know yeah. um I was one of the people that for the longest time was like convincing myself that I didn't actually have anxiety. I was just making it up, like I'm over exaggerating, like I'm trying to come up with something that's wrong with me because blah 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 blah, like. And then I saw at the point where I had like kind of decided, like, no, you're not making this up. This is like a thing that is affecting your life in ways that you have not even realized yet. I saw, I think it was TikTok that was like something about the anxious people who tell themselves they don't have anxiety, or they're making their anxiety up. And I was like, it just called me out, and I was like, that's accurate but rude, and I am disrespected by that, but also not. But anyways, um, yeah, so I convinced myself for the longest time that I was making it up. I was being dramatic. Um, it didn't help that, like, my mom kind of is like that too. Um, doesn't really believe in all of, like, the mental illnesses and how bad they can be, I guess. Also, I don't know how much of this I should say. We're gonna stop now. But um just kind of like, not really believing it all. But um something that finally solidified for me that I do in fact have anxiety. I had my first doctor's appointment as an adult, and my answers to their anxiety and depression screening finally got concerning enough that they had to ask me about it. Yeah, we love that. Um, yeah, so finally someone was like, "Yeah, you have anxiety." But basically they just told me to find a counselor at my college, which I haven't done yet. Like there's counseling services, but the idea of like scheduling that appointment and then doing it makes me anxious and nervous. So, because I feel like every time I set up a meeting, everybody expects me to know what's going on in the meeting and like expects me to lead the meeting. And I'm like, I was told, I don't know. That's why I'm here. I don't know what's going on. Like, we had meetings with our academic advisors at the beginning of the year, and it just felt like I was supposed to know and have way more of a plan than I did. And I was like, dude, I don't know. You're supposed to help me do that. But I don't know. I need to schedule a meeting with, like, an academic counselor, because they have those too. I need to do that. But yeah. Um, it's just, I need to, like, actually do something for it. But I had been feeling fine. I was like, I'm good, man. No, you're not. You're not good. Just because you're in a different place doesn't mean your anxiety goes away. Yeah. But I always feel bad when I get anxious, because I feel like it can seem, especially when I'm around my friends, because it can seem like I don't care, or like it can seem like I'm being rude when I just, like, when I, like, shut down and I just, like, get in my head, and then I'm like, you know, because if you're sitting with your friends and then all of a sudden you're just, like, blank face, like, half-ass reacting to stuff, and or just, like, not, or just, like, sitting there, and, like, I'm able to stay, like, in it enough to react, which is almost worse, because then you're, like, reacting, so then your reactions are just weird. Yeah, I can tell a little bit. There's one story that's not really a story, but, like, well, okay, I've got a couple that are, they talk, like, about anxiety attacks, and one of them involves, like, transphobia, so that's a warning. But so the first, like, panic attack that's more like an anxiety attack, because the difference between a panic attack and an anxiety attack is confusing to me, and I still don't quite understand. But from what I remember, anxiety attacks can be anything from just, like, disassociating. They can last for a very long time, and, like, they have triggers and, like, causes to them, whereas panic attacks are, like, out of the blue, like, just, like, I don't know if they can be triggered. I mean, probably, but then they're, like, the more, like, stereotypical like, dramatic, like, crying and, like, not being able to breathe. And I guess the first, like, this time I was, like, crying, but it was more like just, like, violent sobbing anxiety attack, kind of, because it had all been, like, it was from stuff that had been, like, building up from my anxiety before, which I just made that connection now because I had a lot of, like, school work to do or other stuff to do that I hadn't done, because it got my anxiety in terms of, like, procrastination got super bad in COVID, because I did a lot of things in my bedroom, in my house. So it was like, get done with the class, go lay in bed. And then just, like, the pressure to try and do everything so well, it, like, would paralyze me, because I felt like I had to do everything 100%, forgetting that my 100% is, like, other people's, like, 400%. So, um, like, I would put so much work into everything I did that wouldn't be necessary. Like, we had these choir projects that I spent, like, over an hour on every week, and the teacher had intended for us to spend, like, 15 minutes each week. Um, but I didn't know how to do that little work. I didn't like that wasn't like my brain was not comprehending that. Oops. My brain was not at all comprehending. Oh, 15 minutes of work. Like, no. Like, what is that? What is 15 minutes of work? I was like, no, that's nothing. That's like 5% effort. But that's how my brain was. So I didn't really understand, you know, like, not putting in 100% effort. So then, even when we, like, went back in person and I was having to deal with, like, the political outfall of COVID and, like, actually seeing people and, like, mask rules that were not being followed, so like I wasn't really feeling safe in school, and like just knowing how many people like fundamentally disagree with your existence just through like such simple things. And there was so much like going on like with the school board, or like I actually got up in front of the school board one year. I think it was um the end of my junior year, or like it was the start of like the second half of my junior year, because the school board was, because at that point we had been mostly doing a full virtual schedule, except I think they were like coming back to in person, except my family was not back in person. My family, because like you could just stay home and Zoom every day, because like the rules that they had were just not, they weren't they weren't safe, they weren't rules to keep people safe. So we were like, no, we'll Zoom. So we were Zooming like every day, like all day. And I know that's what a lot of people did, but we like hadn't been doing that, and it sucks. But at this point we had Wednesdays off. Wednesdays were like they were like a homework day, or a day where you could like meet with teachers to talk about if you were behind on something, or just, like a day where you didn't have to Zoom all day. Um, and they were like voting to like end that, to like have people come back to school on Wednesdays, even though like um there was like a very small number of Wednesdays left in the year anyways, I think. So um but yeah. So I got up in front of the school board with like a prepared letter, and I cried. One of the most like embarrassing moments of my life, but also like, it's fine. Like it was like embarrassing, but it also wasn't. Like I got up there in front of them and cried. And I think, well, the funniest part was, one of them was like, you should talk to the school psychologist. And I was like, I know, but that, it feels like you're trying to undermine what I'm saying here. Because I got up there and I talked about how those days are necessary because we sit at a screen for 8 hours a day, and you can't, like, we need a day to just work on stuff where we're not staring at a screen. I was very dramatic. I had a very dramatic analogy about hanging off a cliff by our fingertips, and then like if they took away the Wednesday, it would be like stepping on them. Um it was a little dramatic, but I got a bunch of emails from like staff and like different people saying that what I did was good. So I did not in fact talk to the school psychologist. I probably should have. I like definitely should have, but that made me so anxious. Like, I don't know. It was whatever. But I did that, But basically, the school board had like a doctor on it, and then like this one crazy Republican dude who was like, did not believe that COVID was like real, was like, go back to full in person, like no masks and all this like garbage stuff. And the complete irony of this is that he died from COVID, um, like that year, very shortly after this. It was very sad because he had like kids that were like, he had a kid in my grade and he had like other kids and everything, but at the same time, it's like you were sitting there trying to like make all of these policies that would like be detrimental to like my education, to my safety, to because like um one of my siblings has like asthma, like pretty bad asthma, so like a respiratory disease would have been very bad. And like I'm a singer, and I was like my lungs, my life. Like if I lose my breath support, shot. You know, like if it gets bad and I have to be intubated, you can have permanent damage to your vocal cords from that. Like I would be done. My life, like my plans for like my future and my education would have to completely change. They would be like gone. Like I don't really know what I'm doing, but that would take away like one of the biggest parts of my life. And so like the whole thing with the COVID battles and like whether or not to wear masks and all of that, it's compassion for other people, because everybody was so absorbed in themselves because wearing a piece of cloth over their face was so difficult. Like, no, you're fine. Suck it up. Ugh, makes me angry. Um Back to mental health. I guess that was a sidetrack I was not expecting, but it took up a lot of time. So, um I'm actually, I feel like I had anxiety since I was a little kid, which probably makes sense, but um or at least like, so, I don't know. Because I'm a very tough person and I always have been. And I hate crying. I mean, I'm getting better at it. That sounds so funny. I'm like getting better with like being able to cry without feeling like it's bad or something. But um I hate crying. And even as a child, I'm like pretty sure I did not cry about a lot of things. Like I grew up with brothers. Like I had an older brother, I had a bunch of older cousins that were all like farm and country kids, and like, you know, it was whatever. But for some reason, so I have like a fall birthday. So I'm like on the border between like school years and like ages and whatever. So my parents tried to start me in 4K when I was technically like 3. Oops. So I was like young for the class, and I was like definitely smart enough to handle that. But for some reason, like every day for like 3 months, I sobbed like every day. And I think it was like at the I have like vague memories of it being like missing my mom or like being homesick, but I think that was kind of just like I didn't really know what was going on, and that was like the feeling that I could articulate, I guess. We love the fire trucks. How wonderful. Um but anyways, um that was like the feeling I could articulate at like 4 years old. Um, I remember I have one vivid memory of hating gym class, specifically the game Stuck in the Mud. Basically, it was like tag, but when you got tagged, you had to put your hands on your head and like put your legs like far apart, and then to get unstuck, someone would like crawl through your legs. I hated that game with a passion. I don't know what it was. I did not like that game. I did not. Um but yeah. And I have a vivid memory of crying during that game, and then someone, like another student, came over and asked me what was wrong, and I said I miss my mom. But I don't, like, remembering that feeling, I'm like, is that really what was going on, or is that just what you said? And then eventually they pulled me out and started me again the next year. So technically I did the first, like, couple of months of 4K twice. Um, but the class the class that ended up being above me, the one that I was like originally put in, they were like mean. Like the older we got, they were like mean, like all the time. And I was always scared of them, even though they were only a year above me. And I felt like I was more scared of them than everybody else. So part of me thinks that they were in fact mean as like 4-year olds, and I did not understand that because I had grown up with like my cousins and my siblings. So I got in this environment of a bunch of people my age who weren't behaving how I was expecting them to behave. Like I don't know if I don't think they bullied me, but it's entirely possible that somebody was bullying me because there's certain people I have no recollection of, like at all. Um, like, but there's like a few people I do remember. Um, but I don't know if they were just mean or if it was just the new environment of people and I didn't understand why they were acting the way they were acting because I was smart, like even as a kid, which it causes problems even now. Which this is going to sound very conceited, but when you're talking to a person who has a lower baseline intelligence than you, the conversations can be difficult. Now, I'm not saying like there's a difference between like book smart intelligence and like being smart because you can like be smart and have like just and I don't know like there's a lot of different kinds of intelligence, but like smart people, when you try and talk to somebody who isn't as smart as you either sound conceited or arrogant or like it just feels so awkward because you're trying to say things and they don't understand. So many times in my life, I've like said something and had that person look at me like I was stupid. And I'm like, you just, you don't get what I'm saying. And even talking to somebody who is also smart, but like your vibes just don't match. Like, I had a meeting with a writing tutor a couple weeks ago. Pretty sure this man is smart, but somehow we had some kind of baseline disconnect at what was going on. We talked in circles for like 30 minutes, and both of us knew I was getting nothing out of this. Like, we were going nowhere, and both of us knew it. Um, which is really funny. But it's so, like, I don't know if that was part of it. Like, I got, like, because all of my siblings and cousins are also, like, smart. So I don't know if it was just, like, I don't know what it was, but I I cried every day and I'm still trying to figure out why. Okay? Why? But um yeah. I guess I can wrap it up. So, thank you all who have made it this far in episode 9. Thank you for listening. or watching if you're watching. My favorite song this week is one of my favorite like disassociation like uh, disassociation anxiety. It's uh, the band Motherfolk. They have like a two-part album. Like part of it, half of it is called The Bee, and the other half is called The Flower. Those are the perfect disassociation anxiety. Like it's perfect. My favorite song right now is probably Toothless.